due to my stupefying talent with females of the opposite sex.
No, you mean hotsy-totsy!
Camp Feldman?
Yeah, it's where my sister went last summer.
Power struggles and cast feuds to eating disorders and mental breakdowns. This high school sitcom hides more darkness than any detention hall. Welcome back to the shocking truth behind Kotter, where the real education happened off camera. Fact 1. Barbarinos' real-life struggle. Vinnie Barbarino was the heartthrob every teenage girl swooned over, but John Travolta was secretly falling apart.
See, I told you Mr. Kotter was our kind of guy.
During filming, Travolta developed a severe eating disorder, surviving on almost nothing but coffee and cigarettes. The pressure to maintain his pretty boy image was crushing him. You can actually see how gaunt he became if you watch season 2 closely. His cheekbones were razor sharp and his clothes hung loose on his shrinking frame. Cast members were worried sick, but Travolta insisted he was fine. The irony was devastating. He was playing the confident, cocky Barbarino while starving himself in real life. Makeup artists had to use extra foundation to hide the dark circles under his eyes. His famous hair required extensions because stress was making it fall out. When Saturday Night Fever came along, studio executives were horrified by how thin he'd become and demanded he gain weight for the role. The guy who made cool look effortless was desperately struggling to survive his own success. Barbarino's swagger was hiding Travolta's secret suffering. Fact 2. The Sweatthogs hated each other. On screen, the Sweatthogs were inseparable buddies who had each other's backs. Off-screen, they couldn't stand being in the same room. Lawrence Hilton Jacobs, who played Washington, and Robert Hageis, who played Epstein, were locked in a bitter rivalry over who was the better actor. They constantly competed for screen time and better storylines, turning the set into a battleground. Ron Palillo, who played Horseshacks, was completely ostracized by the group. The other actors thought his over-the-top performance was embarrassing and unprofessional. They'd exclude him from cast dinners and ignore him between takes. Travolta tried to stay neutral, but even he got tired of the constant drama. The tension was so thick that directors had to film group scenes carefully to avoid capturing their real animosity. Ironically, their genuine dislike for each other made their on-screen banter more authentic. The insults felt real because they often were. Writers started incorporating their actual conflicts into the scripts. The Brotherhood of the Sweatthogs was television's biggest lie. They were 4 actors who barely tolerated each other. Fact 3. Gabe Kaplans' power struggle. Gabe Kaplan wasn't just the star of Welcome Back, Kotter. He was also the creator, and he never let anyone forget it. From day one, Kaplan battled ABC executives for complete creative control, and his ego was legendary. He fired writers who didn't follow his exact vision, often rewriting entire scripts himself the night before filming. Kaplan insisted every joke had to be his style of humor, which meant the show became increasingly one-note. He refused network notes about diversifying storylines and making other characters more prominent. The executives wanted to expand the show beyond Kaplan's character, but he saw every suggestion as a personal attack. His paranoia reached ridiculous levels. He'd sit in on editing sessions and demand cuts that made him look funnier. Cast members complained that Kaplan hogged the best lines and reduced their roles to set up his punchlines. The tension came to a head when ABC threatened to replace him as showrunner. Kaplan's response was nuclear. He threatened to quit if they didn't give him everything he wanted. His megalomania nearly killed the show before Travolta's movie career did. Fact 4. The real classroom chaos. Welcome Back, Kotter was supposedly based on Gabe Kaplan's real teaching experience. But the truth was far darker than the sitcom version. The actual Brooklyn high school that inspired the show was a war zone. Teachers were regularly threatened, students carried weapons, and gang violence was an everyday reality. Kaplan has admitted that he sanitized almost everything for television. The real Sweatthogs weren't lovable misfits. They were genuinely dangerous kids from broken homes.
An integer is a counting number.
Right.
Several of Kaplan's former students were in jail by the time the show aired. One had been murdered in a drug deal gone wrong. The classroom where Kaplan taught had bars on the windows and security guards in the hallways. Teachers needed police escorts to their cars after dark. The show's cheerful chaos was built on genuine urban decay and educational failure. ABC executives knew the real story, but buried it to maintain the family-friendly image. The laugh track covered up a tragedy. Those harmless pranks were based on actual violence that destroyed lives. Kaplan turned his trauma into comedy gold, but the cost was hiding the truth about America's failing schools. Fact 5. Barbarinos' early exit strategy. By season 3, John Travolta was already planning his escape from Buchanan High. Saturday Night Fever had made him a movie star, and suddenly television felt like small potatoes. Travolta started making impossible demands, insisting on reduced shooting schedules and higher pay. He'd show up late, leave early, and phone in his performances when he bothered to show up at all. The other actors were furious, watching their show fall apart because their biggest star had checked out mentally. ABC executives were caught in an impossible situation. They needed Travolta for ratings, but he clearly didn't want to be there. Writers had to get creative, explaining Barbarinos' frequent absences with increasingly ridiculous storylines. Sometimes he was sick, sometimes he was visiting family, and eventually they just stopped explaining it. Cast members later said Travolta became arrogant and dismissive, treating his Kotter colleagues like they were beneath him. When Grease became a phenomenon, Travolta essentially abandoned the show that made him famous. His final episodes were painful to watch, clearly going through the motions. The heartthrob who defined the show became its biggest disappointment. Fact 6. Horseshacks' tragic reality. Arnold Horseshacks' distinctive laugh made Ron Palillo famous, but it also destroyed his life. After Kotter ended, Palillo couldn't get any other roles because casting directors only saw him as the goofy Sweatthog. He was typecast so severely that he couldn't even get auditions for serious parts. The laugh that made him beloved became his career prison. Palillo fell into a deep depression, watching his former castmates move on while he remained trapped in Horseshack's shadow. He took teaching jobs and dinner theater gigs just to pay rent, always hoping for a breakthrough that never came. The worst part was meeting fans who expected him to do the laugh on command, reducing his entire identity to a cartoon character's tick. Palillo later said he regretted making Horseshacks so distinctive because it made him unemployable as anything else. He struggled with alcohol and considered leaving acting entirely. When he died in 2012, obituaries focused entirely on Horseshack, not the man who created him. Ron Palillo was a talented actor who got reduced to a single sound effect for the rest of his life. Fact 7. The canceled spin-off disaster. Riding high on Kotter's success, ABC greenlit a spin-off called Mr. T and Tina, starring Pat Morita as a Japanese inventor. It was a cultural disaster from day one, filled with racist stereotypes and unfunny situations. The show lasted exactly 5 episodes before being canceled, making it one of television's biggest flops. But the failure had devastating consequences for the main show. ABC had invested heavily in the spin-off, diverting money and attention away from Kotter. When Mr. T and Tina bombed, the network lost confidence in the Kotter franchise entirely. Budget cuts followed immediately. Sets became cheaper, guest stars disappeared, and writers were laid off. The quality of Kotter declined rapidly as ABC scrambled to recover their losses. Cast members blamed the spin-off for killing their show's momentum and budget. Gabe Kaplan was furious, arguing that the network had sabotaged their successful formula by chasing easy money. The spin-off's failure created a domino effect that accelerated Kotter's cancellation. Sometimes success breeds overconfidence, and overconfidence breeds spectacular failure. One bad decision destroyed 2 shows instead of creating an empire. Fact 8. Washington's real criminal past. Freddie Washington was the tough sweat hog with a heart of gold, but Lawrence Hilton Jacobs brought real street experience to the role. Before acting, Hilton Jacobs had run with actual gangs in his Brooklyn neighborhood and had multiple arrests for petty crimes. His performance as Washington wasn't acting, it was autobiography. ABC executives knew about his background, but kept it quiet to protect the show's family image. Hilton Jacobs used his real experiences to make Washington authentic, drawing on actual confrontations with police and teachers. The anger you saw in Washington's eyes was genuine, stemming from years of frustration with the system. Cast members were initially intimidated by Hilton Jacobs, unsure how much of his tough guy persona was performance. He'd tell stories between takes about real gang fights and encounters with violence that made everyone uncomfortable. The network worried constantly that his past would surface and destroy the show. Hilton Jacobs later said playing Washington helped him process his own troubled youth, but it also typecast him as the dangerous actor. His real criminal past gave Washington authenticity, but it also limited his career opportunities. Sometimes truth makes the best performance, even when it's too dangerous to admit. Fact 9. The joke that went too far. Up your nose with a rubber hose seemed like harmless silliness, but it sparked a nationwide controversy that nearly killed the show. Parents complained that the phrase was inappropriate and sexually suggestive. Conservative groups organized boycotts, claiming the show was corrupting children with hidden innuendo. ABC received thousands of angry letters demanding the catchphrase be removed. The irony was that Travolta had improvised the line during rehearsal, and nobody thought twice about it. But once parent groups latched onto it, the phrase became a cultural battleground. Network censors started scrutinizing every script, looking for potential double meanings. Writers had to defend jokes that would have sailed through before the controversy. Some advertisers pulled their commercials, worried about being associated with inappropriate content. The cast was bewildered that such a silly phrase could cause so much outrage. Gabe Kaplans fought back, insisting the critics were seeing things that weren't there. But the damage was done. The show's wholesome image was shattered and ratings began to decline. A throwaway joke became the beginning of the end. Sometimes the most innocent moments become the most dangerous when filtered through moral panic. Fact 10. Kotter's real-life breakdown success destroyed Gabe Kaplans in ways nobody expected. As Welcome Back, Kotter became a cultural phenomenon. Kaplans began suffering severe anxiety attacks and depression. The pressure of being creator, star, and showrunner simultaneously was crushing him. He started missing production meetings and avoiding public appearances. Cast members noticed he'd become paranoid and erratic, convinced that everyone was trying to steal his creation. Kaplans began seeing enemies everywhere, from network executives to his own writing staff. He'd rewrite scripts obsessively, sometimes staying up for days trying to perfect jokes that were already funny. His marriage fell apart under the stress, and he started drinking heavily to cope with the pressure. The final seasons show a visibly deteriorating Kaplans, struggling to maintain the energy that made Kotter lovable. When the show ended, Kaplans essentially disappeared from Hollywood, retreating into professional poker playing and avoiding entertainment industry events. He later said that creating autobiographical television was like living his life twice, and the second time nearly killed him. The man who brought joy to millions couldn't find any joy in his own success. Kotter's Welcome Back became Kaplans' goodbye to sanity. So there you have it, the shocking secrets behind Brooklyn's most famous classroom. The Sweatthogs may have been lovable troublemakers on screen, but real life was far darker than any detention could handle. Which secret shocked you most? Hit that subscribe button and let us know in the comments below.